What if the universe wasn't silent? What if it had always been speaking to you softly between the spaces of thought, waiting for the moment you would finally listen? Imagine that there exists a law, not a man-made decree, but an eternal rhythm that could guide your entire existence. A principle so profound that once understood it could shatter the illusion of separation between you and the infinite. This is not a myth or a mere philosophy. It is the Law of Thelema. And if you allow it, it will change the way you see reality forever. Alone in the shimmering heat of Cairo in the spring of 1904, a man named Aleister Crowley, part mystic, part scientist, part rebel, stood on the threshold of something that would ripple through centuries. He was not searching for faith, he was dissecting it. He and his wife, Rose Edith Kelly were engaged in a series of strange, mystical experiments that blurred the boundary between ritual and revelation. But what began as curiosity would soon become history. Rose, a woman with little prior interest in occultism, suddenly fell into a deep trance. Her voice changed. Her eyes seemed to gaze into some unseen horizon. She began speaking of a presence, a being waiting to deliver a message. "He is waiting for you," she whispered to Crowley. "The god Horus wishes to speak." Crowley, ever the skeptic, tested her. He demanded proofs, symbols, secrets that only an initiated priest could know. Yet again and again, Rose answered with uncanny accuracy. Something or someone was truly speaking through her. And so on April 8, 1904, in a quiet room near the Cairo Museum, Crowley sat with pen and paper. And for 3 consecutive days, he listened. From beyond the veil came a voice calling itself Iwas, the messenger of the gods. The words flowed rapidly, enigmatic, commanding, divine. What emerged was Liber AL vel Legis, the book of the law, the sacred text that would birth Thelema, the law of will. Crowley didn't understand it, not at first. He spent years trying to grasp what had been delivered through him. But the message was clear enough to echo like thunder through the spiritual world. Humanity was entering a new era, the Aeon of Horus, an age in which the individual would awaken as a living star, radiant with divine purpose. The central declaration of this revelation was deceptively simple. "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." For over a century, these words have been misunderstood, twisted, and feared. Many took them as a license for chaos, an invitation to selfish indulgence. But that was never the point. Crowley did not preach anarchy. He revealed a sacred code hidden in paradox. "Do what thou wilt" was not a call to do whatever one pleases. It was a call to discover what one truly is. Thelema teaches that every human being is born with a unique purpose, a true will. Not desire, not whim, but the soul's authentic trajectory in the cosmos. To follow it is not to rebel against order, but to align with the deepest harmony of existence. Just as each planet moves through its orbit without colliding with another, each person, when living their true will, flows effortlessly through the grand design of creation. Think about that. The chaos you see around you, the conflict, the confusion, is not the natural state of humanity. It is what happens when people forget who they are, when they live against the rhythm of their own spirit. The Law of Thelema doesn't demand obedience, it demands awakening. To live this law is to peel away every layer of illusion that society has wrapped around you, the expectations, the fears, the borrowed morals. It is a process both liberating and terrifying. Because freedom in its truest sense does not mean doing whatever you want. It means becoming who you are meant to be without apology or hesitation. The discovery of one's true will is not a single revelation, but a lifelong initiation. It requires silence, reflection, and courage, the willingness to confront both your divinity and your shadow. Meditation, ritual, and deep study are tools, but they are only gateways. The true work happens when you begin to live with uncompromising authenticity. And here lies the paradox that Crowley unveiled. When each individual follows their true will, there is no conflict, because each soul is a unique expression of the same infinite source. The universe, which seems chaotic, reveals its hidden symmetry. Every motion, every breath, every act of creation becomes a note in the cosmic symphony of will. But this path is not easy. To follow your true will means to abandon the false comfort of belonging. It means rejecting the moral cages that keep humanity tame. You cannot follow your true will and remain who you were. You must burn through illusion until only truth remains. Crowley called it the joy of dissolution, the ecstasy of remembering that you are not separate from the stars. And when you understand this, when you no longer seek permission to exist, you begin to live under a different kind of law. Not the law of men, nor the law of gods, but the law of your own being. Thelema is not a religion. It is a revolution of the soul. It does not tell you what to believe. It dares you to find the belief that was written into your very DNA before you were born. What if you are not lost? What if you have only been sleeping, and this right now is the moment you are meant to awaken? They say the moment you discover your true will, the universe rearranges itself around you. Not through miracles or divine intervention, but because for the first time you begin to move with it, not against it. That is the heartbeat of Thelema, a law that doesn't command from above, but rises from within. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Crowley recorded those words as if they had been carved into the very fabric of his consciousness. But there was another phrase, whispered like an echo from the same divine source, that completed the circle. Love is the law. Love under will. At first glance, it sounds romantic, almost tender. But the love that Thelema speaks of is not sentimental, nor bound by the fragile walls of human emotion. It is the love that holds galaxies together, the magnetic pulse that draws every atom toward unity. To love under will means to let love be guided by purpose, not by impulse. It is not about losing yourself in another, but about remembering yourself through the act of connection. Crowley wrote that love is the force that unites opposites. It is the current that binds the vast and the small, the divine and the human, the infinite and the finite. When you align with your true will, love ceases to be a feeling. It becomes a state of being. It flows through you effortlessly, without ownership or demand. You no longer seek to possess another, for how can one star possess another in the endless sky? You simply shine, together in harmony, each fulfilling its orbit, each radiating its light. This kind of love cannot exist in ignorance. It requires awareness, the understanding that freedom is sacred. Thelema teaches that love without will becomes chaos, and will without love becomes tyranny. Only when both flow together does true balance emerge. The phrase love under will is not a restriction. It is a revelation. It tells us that love, to be divine, must serve truth. When two beings meet under this law, their union is not about completion. It is about recognition. They see in each other the reflection of that same eternal fire, the spark of Nuit and Hadit, the infinite sky and the burning point of consciousness. Nuit, the goddess of the starry heavens, whispers, "Every man and every woman is a star." Her words are not poetry, they are physics of the soul. In the mythology of Thelema, Nuit is the infinite expanse, boundless, eternal, containing all. She represents the vastness of being, the cosmic womb from which everything is born. To dissolve into Nuit is to return to the awareness that you are not separate from anything. You are the universe dreaming itself through human form. Opposite her stands Hadit, the fiery point of consciousness, the flame within the heart that declares, "I am the flame that burns in every human heart." Where Nuit is infinite space, Hadit is infinite motion. Together they are the eternal dance, love and will entwined, creation itself made visible. Thelema invites you into this cosmic relationship. You are both Nuit and Hadit, the infinite and the intimate, the expanse and the spark. When you act from your true will, you are Hadit in motion, expressing the divine purpose encoded within you. When you surrender to love, you are Nuit, embracing the totality of existence. Between them lies the essence of all spiritual awakening, the realization that separation is illusion. But Thelema is not a theory to be admired from afar. It demands to be lived. The moment you choose authenticity over conformity, the law begins to work through you. You start to see how much of your life has been dictated by external forces, expectations, religions, fears, systems that thrive on obedience. Thelema burns all that away. It does not ask you to believe. It asks you to know. To live love under will is to bring consciousness into every relationship, every action, every word. It means never acting out of guilt, shame, or compulsion, but from alignment. When you love under will, your relationships cease to be cages, they become mirrors. You begin to see every connection as a sacred experiment, an opportunity to experience yourself as both creator and created. Crowley often compared this to the movement of celestial bodies. When each planet follows its true orbit, the heavens remain in perfect balance. But when one tries to escape its path, chaos erupts. So it is with human beings. When we deny our true will, when we act out of fear or conformity, we disturb the harmony that was already perfect. And yet, that chaos too has purpose. Because even in disorder, the universe is always pulling us back toward alignment. Suffering is the teacher that points us home. Each heartbreak, each failure, each fall from grace is not punishment. It's a recalibration, a reminder of what we truly are. Thelema doesn't promise comfort, it promises clarity. To love under will is to see that every act, even pain, is part of a greater harmony. When you understand that, love becomes something vast, almost terrifying in its beauty. It stops being a transaction and becomes a law of gravity for the soul. You don't fall in love, you return to it. And in that return, something changes forever. The boundaries between sacred and profane blur. You begin to feel the pulse of the cosmos in your own heartbeat. You realize that prayer, art, sex, silence, they are all the same act of creation when performed under will. Life itself becomes ritual. That is the true mystery of Thelema. It is not about worshiping gods. It is about remembering that you are one. Nuit, Hadit, Ra-Hoor-Khuit. They are symbols of the forces already alive within you. The book of the law is not a commandment from above. It is a mirror, reflecting what you have always been but forgotten how to see. And as Nuit whispers across the starlit void, every man and every woman is a star, you begin to understand what she truly meant. That your life is not random, your path not meaningless. You are a point of light in the infinite, moving in perfect rhythm with the cosmos, if only you dare to listen. There are moments in history when words arrive that don't seem written by human hands. They burn, they breathe, they rearrange everything you thought you knew about reality. Liber AL vel Legis, the book of the law, is one of those moments. It doesn't read like a book. It feels like a transmission. Each line hums with an energy that seems to come from somewhere beyond language, as if the universe itself were dictating its own truth through the fragile instrument of a man. Crowley claimed he didn't write it, that it was received, and if you've ever read it, you know why. The text feels alive, unpredictable, both poetic and ruthless. It speaks in paradoxes, shifting from ecstasy to command, from love to war. It is not meant to be comfortable, it is meant to awaken. The book unfolds in 3 chapters, each dictated by a different voice, each representing a face of divine consciousness. Nuit, Hadit, and Ra-Hoor-Khuit. Together they form the trinity of Thelema, the architecture of the human soul reflected in the cosmos. The first voice belongs to Nuit, the goddess of infinite space, the eternal canopy of stars. Her words fall like stardust. Every man and every woman is a star. She reminds us that we are not isolated fragments struggling in the dark. We are luminous points in a vast constellation of being. Every soul has its orbit, its rhythm, its purpose. There is no hierarchy in the heavens, no star commands another. Nuit's law is freedom, the freedom to expand, to dissolve, to become everything. Her language is intoxicated with love, yet it is a love that annihilates boundaries. She calls her followers to dissolve into her embrace, to lose themselves in ecstasy, to remember that separation is the great illusion. To unite with Nuit is to awaken from the dream of individuality and realize you have never been apart from the whole. It is the mystical revelation that every human, every creature, every atom is a pulse within the same divine body. But Nuit's infinity would mean nothing without Hadit, the second voice. If Nuit is the boundless sky, Hadit is the hidden spark within every heart, the secret center of consciousness. He declares, "I am the flame that burns in every human heart and in the core of every star." Nuit is the infinite, Hadit is the intimate. She expands, he ignites. Together they form the eternal equation of existence, infinite space, infinite point, the cosmic and the personal dancing in endless union. Hadit's message is one of motion, passion, and realization. He represents the eternal becoming, the inner fire that drives you to evolve, to seek, to create. He is not a god to be worshipped. He is the divine awareness that experiences itself through you. When you feel the hunger for truth, the impulse to create, the courage to act, that is Hadit whispering through your veins. Hadit tells us that truth cannot be given by priests or prophets. It must be lived. He rejects submission, condemns blind faith, and demands that each soul discover its own path through experience. His law is the law of direct contact with reality. To know Hadit is to realize that enlightenment is not somewhere far away. It is the fire flickering quietly inside you, waiting for you to notice. Then comes the third voice, Ra-Hoor-Khuit, the hawk-headed lord of the new Aeon, the child of Nuit and Hadit, the living synthesis of love and will. His words crash through the silence like thunder. Where Nuit whispers and Hadit burns, Ra-Hoor-Khuit commands. He represents the awakening of power, the moment the soul rises to manifest its purpose in the world. His chapter is fierce, even violent, and for good reason. It announces the death of the old age, the Aeon of Osiris, the era of guilt and sacrifice, and the birth of a new one, the Aeon of Horus, where the individual stands as sovereign, divine, free. This is not the rebellion of ego, but the liberation of spirit. The old gods demanded obedience, the new god demands awareness. Ra-Hoor-Khuit calls for strength, courage, and the destruction of hypocrisy. He tears down the walls of fear so that the soul may rise unbound. This is why many find the Book of the Law unsettling. It does not comfort. It confronts. It strips away sentimentality and forces you to see what is real. When it says there is no law beyond do what thou wilt, it's not a dismissal of morality. It's a declaration of responsibility. You are no longer a servant of gods or systems. You are the creator of your own cosmos. Each of these three voices, Nuit, Hadit, Ra-Hoor-Khuit, represents a phase of awakening. Nuit invites you to remember your divine origin. Hadit teaches you to experience that divinity within, and Ra-Hoor-Khuit commands you to embody it in action. Together they form a complete spiritual cycle: unity, realization, manifestation. When you begin to live through this trinity, the world itself transforms. Every event, every challenge becomes part of a grand ritual. You stop seeing coincidence, you start seeing correspondence. The same law that moves the stars begins to move through you, and life takes on an almost musical rhythm. The more you align with your true will, the more the universe responds, as if recognizing one of its own. That is the secret at the heart of Thelema. It is not about escaping the world, it is about sanctifying it. The divine is not somewhere above, it is here in the pulse of the present moment, in every breath you take consciously. Nuit is the sky above you, Hadit is the fire within you, and Ra-Hoor-Khuit is the force that turns your potential into creation. When you live this truth, every act becomes an act of magic, not the trickery of illusionists, but the sacred art of aligning will with reality. You begin to understand what Crowley meant when he said that magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. Every choice, every word, every silence becomes a spell. You are no longer a victim of fate, you are its author. But there is one warning hidden between the lines of the Book of the Law. This path is not for the faint of heart. The moment you declare your sovereignty, life will test you. Old illusions will crumble, false relationships will fall away, and the structures that once gave you comfort will dissolve. This is not cruelty, it is purification. The fire of Hadit burns away everything that is not true, leaving only the diamond of your essence. And when that diamond begins to shine, when you have walked through the ashes of who you were, you begin to understand what Thelema really means. It is not a religion, it is a remembering. It is not about worshiping gods, it is about becoming conscious of the God within. Nuit above, Hadit within, Ra-Hoor-Khuit before you. They are not entities in the sky. They are the three mirrors through which the universe recognizes itself in you. When you finally see that, when you no longer bow but stand radiant in your own truth, you understand the great mystery that Crowley tried to express. That freedom and love are not opposites. They are the same current flowing through eternity. Thelema is not meant to be admired from a distance. It is not a philosophy carved in stone or a scripture to be recited. It is a practice, a living current meant to be breathed into your bones. The moment you begin to live it, not just read about it, the entire structure of your life starts to rearrange itself. Subtly at first, like shifting constellations, and then with a force that feels almost divine. To live according to Thelema is to make every act an expression of your true will. It begins, as all great transformations do, with silence, with the courage to turn inward and listen to the whisper beneath the noise. Crowley once said that the first duty of every magician is to know thyself. It sounds simple, but few ever attempt it. True self-knowledge demands you strip away the layers of borrowed identity, the masks of family, culture, fear, and face what remains when all illusions burn away. This is why Thelemites keep magical diaries, not as superstition but as mirrors for the soul. To observe the self without judgment is a sacred act. Each entry, each reflection becomes a fragment of the map leading you closer to your true will. Meditation sharpens awareness, ritual shapes intention, and study deepens understanding. But all these practices point to one truth. Your life is the ritual. When you wake consciously, when you work with integrity, when you speak with presence, you are already practicing magic. The rituals merely remind you of what every moment truly is, a gateway to creation. But freedom, as Thelema teaches, demands responsibility. Do what thou wilt is not permission to drift through chaos, It is a vow to align yourself so completely with your essence that every action becomes inevitable, like a star following its orbit. The more you know yourself, the less you can act out of ignorance. Freedom without awareness becomes decay. Awareness without freedom becomes prison. Thelema is the alchemy that unites both into balance. And in that balance, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see the sacred in everything. The ordinary act of walking becomes a form of invocation. Eating, working, creating, all become expressions of will aligned with love. The mundane becomes magical, and life itself becomes the temple. Yet no temple stands without challenge. Misinterpretation has long haunted Thelema. To the uninitiated, Crowley's law sounds dangerous, an invitation to hedonism, a descent into moral chaos. But those who say so have never looked deeply into the heart of the philosophy. True will has nothing to do with momentary pleasure. It is the melody of the soul playing in harmony with the universe. It is discipline disguised as freedom. Crowley was called the wickedest man in the world, a label born more from fear than understanding. He shattered conventions not to glorify sin but to expose the hypocrisy that called itself virtue. Thelema was never about rebellion for rebellion's sake. It was about awakening. To those imprisoned by dogma, freedom looks like madness. But to those who have tasted even a drop of it, obedience feels like death. Thelema has also been falsely linked to darkness, to Satanism, to evil, to blasphemy. But if you look closer, you see something luminous. Thelema does not worship demons or deities. It recognizes that divinity is the pulse within every living thing. There is no external savior to follow, no external evil to fight. The war is within, and the victory is awakening. Thelema's morality is not imposed. It is born from awareness. When you act from true will, you cannot harm another, because every act in harmony with the cosmos naturally supports the freedom of all. Thelema replaces guilt with responsibility, faith with knowledge, and submission with self-realization. To live this law is to walk through fire. The moment you choose authenticity, the old structures begin to crumble. Relationships shift, careers fall away, desires transform. The ego resists, terrified of its own dissolution, but beneath that burning lies liberation. The path of Thelema is not comfortable, it is real. And reality, when finally faced without illusion, is both terrifying and magnificent. This is the great paradox of freedom. To become infinite, you must first surrender everything you think you are. Nuit calls to you from the stars, whispering of "Come forth and be one with me." Hadit burns within you, urging "Know thyself and move ever toward the light." And Ra-Hoor-Khuit stands before you, fierce and radiant, declaring, "Now act, manifest, create." In that trinity lies the cycle of your awakening: remembrance, realization, and manifestation. When you truly live Thelema, your life becomes a seamless fusion of these three. You no longer pray for meaning, you become it. To practice Thelema in daily life is to act with intention, to speak with integrity, to choose courage over comfort. It is to realize that every choice is a spell, every thought a seed. The magician does not wait for destiny. He writes it moment by moment in the language of will. And yet there is tenderness in this philosophy. Love is the law, love under will. It means that every act of power must be softened by compassion. Every act of freedom must serve understanding. Love is not weakness. It is gravity for the soul, the invisible current that keeps creation from tearing itself apart. Thelema is the science of self-becoming. It is the art of walking through the world as both human and divine, as both question and answer. It asks nothing of you except the one thing most people fear to give: your truth. And perhaps that is why it has endured for more than a century. because it speaks to the quiet rebellion within every soul that has ever felt trapped by lies, dogma, or despair. Thelema doesn't promise salvation. It promises awakening. It doesn't tell you to follow, it dares you to lead. When Crowley wrote, "There is no law beyond do what thou wilt," he wasn't abolishing morality. He was declaring that morality must evolve from consciousness, not commandment. That is the revolution of the soul, to live guided not by fear but by the compass of one's own inner star. And that brings us here, to this moment. You listening to these words are not a spectator in this story. You are part of it. The same current that moved through Crowley in Cairo moves through you now. Thelema isn't ancient history, it's happening through every person who dares to ask, "Who am I really?" So perhaps this is the only real question worth asking. Will you follow your true will? Not the voice of desire, not the noise of expectation, but the quiet, unwavering pulse of your own essence. If you listen long enough, you will hear it. A vibration deep beneath thought calling you home. Because in the end, there is only one law written across every star and every soul. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will. That is the secret. That is the invitation. That is the eternal compass pointing not outward, but inward, toward the vast and luminous truth of who you have always been.